assignment, in a sense. When I think about it, and I'm glad that I listened to Nike's story, because as a manufacturing girl, I can do many markers in it. And every one of us that has built companies, I've been in manufacturing in Nigeria for 35 years. Yes, because we started very early. I was in my 20s when I started. So we grew in the middle of all the crises of Nigeria. I can tell you many landmarks. But we're still here. So that tells you something. So what I'm going to talk about is leading an organization through change. In Nike's story, she's already given you some life stories of leading an organization through change. So I'm going to take you through a scenario, because I want you to understand, if you build in a nation that is as dynamic as Nigeria, your mindset has to be prepared to respond to situations as they occur. I remember one time, I think it was 2004, I was in business school in Spain, and then government had a change of policy that critically affected my business. And one of my Spanish business partners, the guy flew from Bilbao to come and meet me in Barcelona. And he sat down with me and said, Ibukun, explain to me how your government changed policy just like how many weeks ago, and how you're already telling me this is what you've decided to do, this is what, how can you turn around so quickly? I said, well, I'm a Nigerian. I go to sleep every day expecting something to happen. The only thing I've also learned to do is when it happens, I don't run away from it. It's how we lasted this long. I find how to respond to it in order to move forward. So we all, in our different ways, as Nigerian entrepreneurs or people in business or in our careers, we lead change in different ways every day, but we do not recognize it and give it the value of what we do. Now, one more thing, I want to put a gender dimension to it, because I want you to understand that there are peculiarities about women when it comes to leading change, and there are peculiarities that work for and against women based on how we are. In terms of the fact that when you need change, you're going to have to give up something. You're going to have to commit to changing ways. Sometimes you shut some things down completely. Sometimes you let some people go. Sometimes you detach and separate yourself from some people. Because we're emotional beings as women, we tend to be less able to do it than our male counterparts, who are more, aggressive about just cut and paste. You cut, you're working, you're good. You're not, you're out. But we're attached. Our heart is in most things that we do. And that in itself can become a vulnerability as change agents. However, that same nature combined with other things about us as women, because we're nurturers, we're builders of community, we're connected, we like to manage relationships, we like to have our heart in it, they also become powerful tools for managing the process of change. As I go along, you will understand some of the things I'm pointing out now, because in managing change, you have a lot of people, emotions, lives, situations to manage. And the way you manage that process can determine whether you're able to succeed with your change process or not. So I want you to come from your feminine side and recognize that the things you do every day, they are your assets. They're not always your liability. Okay. There's nothing permanent in life except change. Every time. It's easy. Just go and look at your picture, at least for those of us that are a little older. I can look at my wedding picture and I'll see this skinny, tall girl that got married. And then I remember right now she's got some heavy backside and she's carrying it well. But that's how we are. It's life, transformation, things happen. And you look around you, you look at neighborhoods, you look at pictures, you see the changes in the pictures that you were shown by Mrs. Ogunlesi, and the changes and transformation to where they are now. For all of us, across the pathway of your journey, there are seasons of change. Even in weather, dry season is different from rainy season. That is life. Nothing is permanent. And in your life, in your career, in your journey, you must accept that there will always be need for change. So why should you have a mentality that gets stuck? You need to unbundle your mind and unwind it and open up for the fact that sometimes the change that happens around you is not against you, it's for you. However, every change can be against you if you do not have the right mindset, if you do not have the right approach, if you do not take it on and decide. I remember that same story I was telling you about this Spanish guy that came. Government announced in network news, 2004 January, I think it was, I can almost remember the date, change of government policy that literally was going to wipe away 15 years of my work building my business. So there were two things, two options. Either decide to continue by becoming a smuggler, which will destroy the value system with which I had built my business and the value system that I believed in and that I wanted to build going forward. Or that I would have to rethink my business and think of how to maintain who I am. So in the process of change, it's important that before you even get there, some things are not negotiable. Change does not mean everything about you changes. Change requires that you understand the things about you that define who you are, the things that speak to the strength of your person, your character, your personality, your personal brand. What will you die defending? What are the non-tradable parts of your life? So when it happened, it was either, it was easy, become a smuggler, bring everything in and be selling and use Nigeria and government as an excuse, or remember that I said to myself when I was starting my business at 25 going on 26, I will never pay a bribe and I will never sleep with a man to get a job. And therefore I had a responsibility, even then, growing as a Christian girl, which I became a Christian just before my 28th birthday. I was raised a Muslim. But growing as a Christian girl, the values I had imbibed through my faith that I considered important to me, was I going to fight to maintain them, or was I going to betray them now that I had a challenging situation? So it's important for you to spend some time with yourself. Define who you are. Define the things that are non-tradable about you. At that moment of that trial and that changing situation, I knew there were certain things I could not do. So I was not going to become a smuggler, because then I'll have to say to God, thank you for the times things were good, but now I've got to survive, and your values cannot help me to survive now. Now I wonder what I would have done when the next trouble came, because then I would have abandoned God on the way. So in making those decisions, be sure of the things that do not change. So the message here is, change happens, but there's some things in your life that shouldn't change. Pay attention to the things that shouldn't change. Just because you haven't been promoted at work, do not sleep with the guy who has the power to control your promotion, because it's still a temporary situation. It will pass, and somewhere along the line, maybe the guy himself is the one you are going to have to consider for promotion somewhere else. You never know. So just make sure that you are doing the right thing. So if you are leading change in an organization, one of the first things you must do is define who you are as an organization, even as you define who you are as a person. Define, are you a change maker? You have a strategic mind. You are innovative. You are an effective leader. Be confident about who you are. I always say to people, I know who I am. I know my biggest asset. I haven't walked through 35 years of working through building enterprises and working within corporate at board level in different ways. I know that my biggest asset is a strategic mind. I also know that I'm self-assured and I would stand for that which is right. I know I will fight for integrity and values no matter what it costs me. And as I've learned, even in the last short while, it was worth fighting for. Sometimes you pay a short-term price of pain for the right things, but ultimately time proves you to be right, and time always tells his own story. So do a review of where you are as an organization at that point. Understand what the issues are so that you know what you need to change and what you mustn't touch. Because in the process of change, it isn't everything. When Nike told you the story about them pivoting during COVID, she told you it was about using the assets they already had. The assets were not discarded. The workmen were not discarded. The processes were not discarded. The quality that they were committed to was not discarded. What they pivoted to was the application of those resources to something else, and the retraining of the minds of the people to say, look, the attention to detail for a medical tool is different to one for just clothing, but there are values that are transferable across all lines, and there are values that will be specific because of that particular thing, and that is what you pay your attention to. Okay, jump in. Now, go back. Okay, it's not just you, but I know what I'm doing. I think it's the system. So I'm gonna go on my laptop, on my iPad, on my phone, and move faster than waiting for it to come. You guys can follow the screen. I will follow my own slides on my phone. Okay. So now, organization change is the process through which, is the process through which a company undergoes any transformation, internally or externally. So you can find yourself subject to change, not because you created it. If you don't create the situation, you still have to respond to it. Like I said, government made a law, it impacted me. I had to respond to it. I didn't create it, but I have to respond to it. So that's the external. Sometimes it's internal, because things happen within your company that make you realize that the strategy you were following or the way you are going is not working anymore. However, because of our general nature and emotional attachment, sometimes we hold on to a dying strategy without making the change on time. The tech industry is full with a lot of casualties that happens in that industry because of that. I mean, if we go as far back as the difference between a VHS and a Betamax was about making a choice. The market made a choice and one was gone. Well, the difference between VHS and CDs was market making a choice. Change happened, whether you liked it or not. It came and it happened. And then all of a sudden, between CDs and what? MP3, any of those things, all the technology. You don't even know, you have to keep up because the speed of change is so fast that it's not under your control. So your mind must always think about the fact that you do not control the factors that lead you to have to change. So in your business, it means you must be educationally aware of what is going on. You must know what your industry. As a young woman in furniture manufacturing, it was important for me to go to all the major furniture fairs in the world. I would save my money for that. Why? I had to know what the thinking was. I had to know what design lines were being pushed. I had to know what products were being used. I had to know what lines of solution were being introduced